The guy that's currently hiding is Vasyl Grubliak, is the artist who made the Russian Kiss exhibit. It honors 1 year of the war in Ukraine happening, and we're celebrating it here, we're grieving it here in this historic Atelier 11, which has sheltered artists for 150 years, currently under the umbrella of the Lair Arts organization. The way things are going to go tonight, I'm going to talk for about another 30 seconds, and then I'm going to ask you all to go down into the multimedia subterranean haven, i.e. the basement, where Dr. Stephanie Nadalo will give us a talk on art, war, history, and Montmartre. After that, we'll come back up here. I'll do a little reading in this frozen explosion type space. That'll last 15-20 minutes. And then finally, we'll have a panel discussion between Vasyl, Stephanie, and myself. And that'll last for, I don't know, half an hour. And after that, we have drinks and celebrate and hopefully collect donations to help the humanitarian crisis that's happening in Ukraine. First, let me talk a little bit about Dr. Stephanie Nadalo. She is a Franco-American art historian, professor, and cultural guide. She teaches at Parsons Paris School of Design, where she is Associate Director of the Art, Media, and Technology Bachelor of Fine Arts. She has been the recipient of Fulbright Fellowship, the American Academy in Rome Prize, and other awards that celebrate her knowledge and multiculturalism. I've had many combos now with Stephanie, and she's indeed brilliant, and I'm sure she'll have many insights for us once we move on down to the multimedia subterranean haven, i.e. the bunker, i.e. the basement. And today she'll be speaking to us on the themes of art for Montparnasse. I guess we'll start off with a little bit of a story. When I was deployed in Afghanistan, I worked in an operations center, which is a bit like how you imagine a dispatch center for a civilian police force. There's a bunch of crises happening in a city, and then there's someone in kind of a brain stem moving and responding, sending cars with police officers into various crises. Except in a war, it's different. You've got different tools or different types of crises, whatever. One day, I'm working in this operations center in Kandahar, and I get a phone call from a Canadian soldier, and he says, "Hey sir, I'm hearing many explosions, like hundreds of explosions, massive explosions. None of us know what's going on. Can you contact the American troops who are north of our position and figure out what's going on?" And I say, "Yeah, sure, that's not a problem." I phone up my American counterpart, and he had a voice a bit like a surfer dude, which was very memorable for me and like kind of inappropriate. And I was like, "Hey man, what's going on?" He was like, "Hey." It's like, "We heard there was a report, there was a bunch of explosions." He's like, "Yeah, we had we had 2 Taliban, and they settled into a hard point." And I was like, "Oh, 2 Taliban and a hard point. What's a hard point? Is that like a trench?" He was like, "Yeah, it's a trench." And I was like, "Okay, 2 Taliban in a trench. So what did you do?" And he was like, "Well, first thing we did was softened the location with 12 Hellfire missiles. And then we dropped 63 500-pound bombs." And I said, "Holy shit, that's a lot of force. Did you get the guys? Did you kill them?" And he said, "Buddy, we turned them into a lake." And that image of the lake has stuck with me, has persisted with me, and it's sort of the theme of this conversation, which is, what do we do with the crater? So I've been involved in this installation for a few weeks now. The credit obviously goes to Vasyl and Svetlana, who curated it, and to the people who helped install it and everything. But I was sort of there like, how are they going to get the pieces through the border? How are they going to get these pieces of explosion through an airport? And then later I got pulled in because we were like, oh shit, we need a ladder. And then I got pulled in again because like, oh shoot, we got the wrong ladder, and we need Matt to carry the ladder. And I just kind of had these ways in. I spent a lot of time having conversations beneath the shrapnel here. So the first piece that I've got to read with you is called Conversations Beneath the Shrapnel. And I sort of had it in my mind that the piece is beautiful and it's perfect the way it is, but because it's a short time piece, an in situ installation, it's going to disappear in like 2 or 3 days. And so what made it whole, what made it complete in a way that wasn't this abstract, was the actual conversations. The conversations became a part of the art. And I started to think to myself, how can I actually contribute and participate in this conversation? Because I've done a lot of listening and processing. Welcome. Come on in. It's actually amazing timing. Oh my. This kid is going to be traumatized by the end of this time. I should say the trigger warning now. Okay? I'm going to talk about war stuff. I'm going to bring us on a little emotional journey into a dark place and then take us back out of the dark place. Okay? That's what's going to happen here. So the first thing I want to say is, can't you guys see that these things are supposed to explode? They aren't Christmas ornaments, even if some of the pieces look like hummingbirds or doves. Watch the shadows when the taped windows flare with sunset, or when Vasyl switches on the big 5 lights, and admit that even though this installation is beautiful, this thing is supposed to explode. In fact, it's so supposed to explode, it already exploded. These were parts of a rocket that was deliberately fired at Ukrainian humans. Vasyl told me one idea, that he could imagine a future exhibit in which the shrapnel was all taken out of people's wounds. But this one here, for me, feels like it's still in motion. Now, mind you, I've got my own war baggage, but I have this idea that the explosion isn't finished. Like each shard is going to resume its original velocity any second now, when the spell inevitably breaks and the pieces will go right through us, and I'm standing here right in the middle of it, just like the 5,000 Ukrainian humans who were killed by these bombs, these things that were supposed to explode. Now, we must face it and say, what Vasyl has made is not only beautiful, it's also terrifying. 63 times I was rocketed in Kandahar by things that were supposed to explode. First you'd hear the big-ass alarm, and that was a sign to throw yourself on the ground and cover your face. You'd hear an explosion, probably, or you'd feel it in the ground, and if it was close enough, you would feel the gravel come down on you. But assuming that the thing that was supposed to explode didn't kill you, you'd run for a concrete bunker and wait in there until a loudspeaker told you to go back to work. So yeah, it does feel strange to be talking to you from the center of a thing that is definitely exploding. I walk between these dangling pieces and it feels like I'm walking past rows of graves, dead civilians, dead soldiers, some even with whole bodies that haven't yet been blasted away by things that are supposed to explode. In the conversations beneath the shrapnel, one human asked me, "Is it art?" I asked them, "Is a war poem art? Is a war monument art?" I told Vasyl he made a beautiful ugliness, a safe violence, something solemn, a thing that was supposed to explode, but hasn't yet. He told me, after hearing me speak, that I should have been a priest. And that makes sense from all the confessions I've heard beneath the shrapnel. Not everyone here has been in combat or fled a war zone, but most humans that I meet are so full of hormones and wounds that every person I encounter is basically supposed to explode. You know what? I'm starting to like this idea of me being a priest. I just turned 40 and I think I'm finally ready and I accept this role. And I think if I was a priest, I would be that guy that reaches out to every member of the flock, every one of them. I'll even go visit the man who fired the thing that was supposed to explode. Marvel for a second at how hard-hearted you must be to fire a rocket at a civilian human. How much propaganda you must have eaten. How much you have dehumanized a Ukrainian human to the point that the Russian soldiers were writing the little barbs of war on the things that were supposed to explode. Bombs away, have a nice death, see you in hell. Hurt people, they say. If I'm going to be a priest now, then let me take this moment to say some real shit to you. We need to heal. We need to heal as hard as we can. We need to heal the victims. We need to heal the survivors. We need to heal the soldier who fired the thing that was supposed to explode. We need to heal all soldiers. We need to heal all men. We need to heal everyone. When this thing that is supposed to explode finally achieves its destiny and finishes exploding, there will be a crater right here where I'm standing. As there was a crater for each of the things that were supposed to explode that the Russian humans fired at the Ukrainian humans. That's not even mentioning the craters we carried within. And while the holy fire still fills me as I speak here at this shrine of human wounds, I ask each one of you, what will you do with the crater? We stand here in the shadow of a beautiful, terrifying, solemn, and hopeful installation. Vasyl Grubliak, the man who tamed an explosion. Assuming we all make it out of here, we're going to have the memories of the way the fragments caught the light, much as we'll remember the conversations beneath the shrapnel. But no matter what happens, please remember that this is not a toy. This is supposed to explode. There are 5,000 Ukrainian civilians who have been killed by these bombs, 8,000 civilians total, 13,000 Ukrainian soldiers. These numbers are real numbers and horrifying numbers, and it's ongoing right now. And one of the conversations we've had beneath the shrapnel is always, how do we make it real? How do we make it not abstract? How do we make it something that we just can't swipe away and never think about? I ask you now to join me for a moment of silence as we think about the suffering of the humans in Ukraine. When I talked earlier on about having empathy for the soldier who fired the thing that was supposed to explode, I actually meant it. And I do want to invite us all into making the kind of leap of empathy that it requires to think about this person and to think about what we can actually do about this person and the fact that they exist. So I'd like to read an excerpt from for you about an experience I had that I've written down in my book. And the point of this excerpt is to kind of bring you into the stress and the craziness and the dehumanization of the soldier's mind and the soldier's life. For example, when I was in Afghanistan and we were dealing with a bunch of crises, we'd be in a little operations center and there'd be a bunch of screens and monitors. We'd be watching things through drones, and there'd be crises happening, and most of the time people shared information through a kind of combat chat. And people from the different headquarters and stuff were all putting information into the combat chat, and it would just scroll down, erasing everything that came before it, and it became this kind of metaphor for the war itself, an ongoing metaphor for an ongoing war. So in the actual text on the page, at some point it just becomes pure voices and pure combat chat, and you probably know when that's happening. So, the jargon doesn't really matter, just try to get into the flow and you feel the things. A 9-liner showed up on the screen. A local, injured. We needed to act. Number of casualties and severity, 1 critically injured, scalded genitals. Patient nationality and status, Afghan infant. I didn't make this up. Someone had scalded a baby's genitals. An angry mutter ran through the assembled shoulders, but the general was still duck-speaking, staring down at us through those glimmering mirrors of his sunglasses. A series of polite coughs, and the major cleared her throat. Then, as the seconds ticked on, the courage to interrupt, sir, and frantic nods towards the screen, but the general's mouth raced. We say hoo-ah early in the morning, 0 dark 30, in accordance with the battle rhythm. Good time to send rounds down range, and he said, don't call me sir, I work for a living. So I throat punched him square in the nuts. Just full spectrum operations, close with and destroy. Another one. I wrote into the combat chat, then ran to the big map, about 5 kilometers south of Mushan. Said Clay. Get that fucking Roz down, Crazy J. Whose fucking Roz is this, said the major. Can't, yelled Crazy J. We got American troops in contact north of the river. It's their Roz. Here's another 9-liner, I said to the hospital. What the hell, said the hospital. Is this the same 9-liner as before? No, I said, this is a separate event. Said the hospital. Where's the helicopter? Working on it, said Clay. Fucking, I'll phone RC South myself, said the major. Second 9-liner's outside the Roz, yelled Crazy J. We need a goddamn helicopter, said the major. Fuck you, said RC South. Use a medical helicopter. We got troops in contact. Hey, you fucked up the grid reference on that second 9-liner, said the troops. Fuck it, I said, but wrote Here's the correct grid reference, said the troops. Okay, 6 kilometers south of Mushan, I said. That's still outside the Roz, said Crazy J. Fuck you, said the war. Here's another 9-liner. Number of casualties and severity, 1. Critically injured, scalded genitals. Patient nationality and status, Afghan. Infant. You can't be goddamn serious, said Clay. I wrote. Fuck yourself, yelled the major. Just south of Kandahar City, I said. Here's another 9-liner, I told the hospital. We got 3 critically injured now, said Clay. You gotta be shitting me, said the helicopter people. What the hell's happening, said the hospital. Is this the same as the other injury? No, I said. 3 different injuries. 3 different events, same injury. Who the fuck scalds a baby's genitals, shouted Cool. Fuck you, said the war. Rocket attack, rocket attack. Third 9-liner is outside of the Roz, said Crazy J from under his desk. I'm phoning those pricks, I said from under mine. Boom, said the exploding rocket. I'm bright and shiny, said the spray of sparks. We need the helicopter for the rocket attack, said RC South. We got 3 critically injured, yelled the major. We're coming into your goddamn Roz, I said. I got a helicopter, said Clay. Send it to the second 9-liner, I said. Said Clay. Boom, said the second rocket. I'm loud as fuck, yelled the siren. Take the damn helicopter, said RC South. You're goddamn right, said the major. Send your medics here and here, I said. Said the hospital. Sorry, grid reference wrong again, said the troops. We're taking off now, said the first helicopter. I wrote. Wah, 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 cried the baby with the scalded genitals. I wrote. Now we're taking off, said the RC South helicopter. Said the RC South helicopter, the third incident, not the first, I said. What the fuck is going on, guys, said the RC South helicopter. Shut the fuck up and do it, said the major. I'm landing on the ground now, said the first helicopter. I wrote. Did you my new grid reference, said the troops. I wrote. Okay, we're landing now too, said the second helicopter. Roz is down now, said the troops in contact. Our baby died, said the first helicopter. Send the helo to the first incident, I said. Go get the first baby, Clay wrote. We're landing at the hospital with our baby, the second helo said. This baby died too, the first helo said. I wrote. Not a hopeful piece about war. I'm not going to apologize for it because I think you've asked me to come and speak beneath shrapnel and contribute the voice that wasn't here, and someone needed to come in and talk about the waste. And if you ever speak to a veteran about what they think about war, at some point they'll probably talk to you about waste. Wasted friends, wasted resources, wasted lives. And no matter how hard you try, no matter how gifted you are, you cannot actually use your art to bring people back to life. But Vasyl's installation is actually hopeful. There's some hope for peace. Some in this room hope for peace. Others hope for victory. My hope is for magic, because I see that in certain ways time can be stopped, and things that are supposed to explode don't explode. Injustices can be undone. The soldier can heal and lay down his arms and go home. I have a second short excerpt from my book, which I'll take you in, and then go to a dark place, and then we'll leave it, and we'll be hopeful, okay? "How's everyone doing today?" asked the general in his too loud voice. I made the mistake early in my tour of answering this question and answering honestly with less than perfect enthusiasm, and the chief nearly bit my pinky finger off on my left hand. Now I know the question is rhetorical. The appropriate reaction is to wait and attention and smile with your whole face and radiate joy at the general's presence, and this is what he needed. At ease, troops. We relaxed our posture and nothing else. The general glanced at the monitor. The drone was chasing the tail of a long, empty road. "I heard you guys got some action today. Our man Bell is back in the saddle, doing the work of the war." I said, "Correct, sir. We've struck a target, an IED in place, sir, at minute 1649 in the vicinity of Mushan. We received positive ID from intelligence, lined up a jet, and the major approved the strike. The strike consisted of 5 40-millimeter rounds, which neutralized the target completely. We conducted a battle damage assessment with a Heron, resulting in NSTR. That means nothing significant to report. At every point, every incident in the war became nothing significant to report. NSTR, is that what you call it, Jones? The major emerged from her nook. We just watched the women of the village collect that young man in a basket, and you say NSTR. She turned to the general. "Good evening, sir." "Good evening, Major," boomed the general. "I was just popping in to congratulate Bell on his successful strike today. I owe that man a handshake." "Bell is gone for the night, sir, but I'd be happy to bend your ear on other matters. The strike only highlights the fragility of our support. We need more female engagement at the village level. If you read my proposal..." The general batted away her words with a flippant gesture. Later. Had a long day, Major. Been all over the battle space. Show me the video, Jones." I nodded to Crazy Jay. He loaded the video onto the big screen, and Judas, the man we had killed earlier that day, was alive again. He was trailing out a spool of wire. The first bomb landed and launched him into the air. Then he was juggled by the next 2 explosions before the last 2 rounds obliterated him completely. The dust settled and Judas was gone. How many times had we killed him? "Did his shoes come off?" said the general. "That's the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Again, Jones, and slow it down this time." I nodded to Crazy Jay. Judas was alive again, but slower. His movements, as he trailed out the spool of wire, lackluster. A black, glittering streak. The first round landed and burst. For a second, Judas was standing unharmed and nonchalant, a mere meter from a deadly blast. But then, pieces of his clothing started ripping off, and smaller black streaks cut through him, and his feet left the ground, and his mouth opened. The second round exploded. The 2 forces pushed his body in different ways, twisting it around. The shrapnel ripped the clothes from his back. The third round landed, blasting from beneath. Judas was actually completely upside down at one point. "Pause it," said the general. Judas was frozen in the air, one leg bent the wrong way at the knee, his neck twisted around, slipping his heels from his sandals like a debutante dangling her toes in the pool. "Have you seen enough yet, sir?" said the major. "No." Played in reverse, slower. Judas was naked in the air above 3 bursting clouds. He slipped his sandals back on, tucked tucked his face forward and straightened his broken leg. He somersaulted, and a black streak sucked out of the ground and took one of the exploding clouds with it. Clothes flew onto his back. He twisted like a dancer. Another black streak flashed into the sky, inhaling the bursting cloud. Judas landed gracefully on the ground. His clothing flew onto his body, and he trapped a cry of anguish in his mouth. Then he was standing invincible next to an explosion for a moment. It seemed he had a change of heart and gave up on war altogether because he turned and lazily spooled in the wire. Next, he would tuck his weapons away, have lunch with his family, and enjoy 20 years of peace. Thank you, guys. Hello, everyone. This is the next and final phase of the Russian Kiss exhibit installation, the panel discussion. I've got a bunch of questions, and I've asked so many questions already because I knew you were there. I've also asked many questions as well because it's very easy to ask questions of. But we also would like to hear any of your questions as well. If the talk or the exhibit or my talk has made you thoughtful and motivated in any way, you'll have a chance to ask a question. Okay? So think hard and deeply about that. But I would like to start this up and get Vasyl going. Basic question, most of us should know the answer, but who knows where he'll take it. Why did you make the Russian Kiss?
The name?
No, the installation, the whole thing.
Because I try to explain what happens in my country and other people. And I work like artist and to try to find a new way to show and to explain what happens in our country now. And I don't know, it's cool that we come to this exhibition, to this project, and that we interested and try to understand. I think it's cool. It's a short answer.
How have you felt about creating this installation, either this space or Paris and its reception?
This space, everything in this project happens like something magic, because when I created this idea in Kyiv, everything was unbelievable, because I didn't have anything. I have only imagine in my brain. But step by step, and I'm this project, and I am is here, and I saw how this project to improve other people, and this space is really, it's very something magic, because it looks my studio like in Kyiv. My studio is the same old space, old building, on the same hill, because Kyiv, some people name Kyiv the city of the 7 hills, because we have 7 hills. And my studio on the one of the hills, old and important hills for our history and to Kyiv, for Ukraine. And every time to have invisible connect. And this space small, physical small, but I feel this space is very big and improve. Far away it looks like maybe small star or star. They small, but they improve everywhere. And it's amazing space, and everything is cool, and I don't know. I'm happy that I can't to do it here, because I will be happy that this project to start to move to another place and to show. And I saw how people when people to see this project, these pieces, I saw that they start to think about it, maybe. And one important thing that I don't want to invade a really Russian rocket to Paris to another city. I would like to this pieces stop in Ukraine and not spread to another country. But it's important that people from another country, for example from French or Germany, to understand, to try to understand what that war is not far away. And I think that I was more far away from war 1 year ago than some people here, because I think it's impossible. It can be in the central Europe, and it can be so ugly and so almost scary in reality. It looks like first time it looks like a bad joke, like horror, and many people told that she wants to close open eyes, and it's bad dream, but it's not a bad dream. It's a reality, and Russian Federation to invade to independent country and to try somebody to change. Sorry.
Just for people who are here, if you feel moved by the installation or Stephanie's talk or my talk, we are accepting donations which will go 50% towards helping the humanitarian human rights crisis in Ukraine. 30% is going towards investigation of war crimes, and the remaining 20% is for sheltering other artists like Vasyl and Stefan. Okay, so in Stephanie's talk, we looked at multiple artists, so this can be for both of you here. Multiple artists who were like, ooh, do I go to war or do I make art? Do I go to war or do I make art? So for either one of you, like, what do you think? What's the relationship between these things? Does the artist fight? Should the artist go to war?
Well, maybe, you mentioned to me the other day that this is the first artwork you've ever made about war. So for you in your career, this is a huge, different kind of direction. So do you maybe want to speak a little bit about that decision, because it cannot be emotionally easy. And you have mentioned to me, and the way you got access to these fragments is that you have friends, of course, who are fighting. So maybe you want to speak a little bit more about.
I don't want war to start 1 year ago. I don't want to do anything, and I try to save I work with light. I like light, love light, and I think about that light is our language, and about lighting pollution and other beautiful things. But and I try to save this my small world, my creative without war. I like to make here shelter where I try to do my creative without war. But war, but it's like sounds like bad joke. But war looks like invisible light, like radiation, and it asks you, do you want to see this light or you don't want to see light? They come to you and cross on the window, wall, and destroy everything, the body, the family, and house, city, many cities in Ukraine which destroyed totally. It happens because these pieces come sent to our country, Russian Federation. And I tried to save, and many people, many curators to call me, Vasyl, do you have something about war? I told I don't want to, I don't have anything. But when you live in environment which around you is war,
Sooner or later.
Huh?
Sooner or later.
So later you start to I start to think how can I explain and how can I show what happens around me, with my friends, with my country. And in the spring on the
Summer.
summer, when one of the day when I come again these rocket pieces, I feel that these pieces is everywhere in the city. They're invisible, but my brain is see these pieces. And I explained this idea to my friend, she's the curator of this project, and asked her boyfriend is a soldier, and he's fighting in reality now. And I asked Sveta, can you ask your boyfriend what do you think he about this project? Because for me it was important opinion. These people who is relative. I look like artist, like maybe like director, regisseur, director, and for me it was important her opinion. And he told it. He doesn't have nothing connect with contemporary art. He's really soldier, but maybe it's. I feel that at this time I feel that language. Art can be good, can be in different situations, can be guns too. And he told me that I don't have weapons, pieces, but he told that it's good idea, but I don't understand anything, but it looks very beautiful. He told that it's most important. But he told I don't have for you pieces. It's a very strange situation because every day it comes to Ukraine, these pieces, but to find he have to go through maybe to front to take, but it's impossible because everything is post restricted. Yes, pocket, yes. And 1 week later he called me, "Go Vasyl, you lucky man," but everything is. Every time it's strange because it looks like a bad joke. Vasyl, you lucky man. Russian Federation sends special for you 2 rockets. And they don't know, I'm happy, I'm not happy. And he asked he is everything, everyone is good with your soldier. He told me it's okay. And we collect these pieces and send to you. And you can take it and to show it. I told with him about which my role in this history between this war, because he told me if you are artist, you have to use your tools, your guns, and to like I am fighting here, you have to take these pieces and to explain, and to show what is in reality. And I start to find the space And I told her that my curator told that it has to happen in Paris. Everything is a joke. Because I don't know what's more impossible, to find really pieces or to do it in Paris. But maybe when you dream like a my small child, and you don't have border, and now it's here, and it's cool that I see here many people. Another age. Another national, because we don't know. For example, 1 year ago, I know that everywhere something in our earth happens, war, and I think this is far away. It's not far away, and maybe this installation to make to privilege it.
Make it closer. Make something closer.
Closer.
Closer our winner. And thank you, French. Yes. French.
Yeah, I think we were all quite struck by the sound that these fragments make, because it can sound like a bell, meditative, almost beautiful. And in both, Matt, your spoken word piece and your writing, and of course in this installation, we're invited to dwell in these horrific and yet aesthetically mesmerizing moments. And so I did want to direct a question to you, Matt, and maybe, because it's true that we have both artists who will mobilize their creativity on behalf of a war effort. In your case, you were a soldier, and I'm curious, at what point did you become a writer? Did you, like Guillaume Apollinaire, were you writing while these experiences are happening, or is this a process of processing those experiences you so eloquently evoked for us?
Healing.
Healing, yes, a good word.
I feel like Guillaume Apollinaire is his story. You all saw the thing downstairs. Guillaume Apollinaire, he got the head injury. He was a poet, enthusiastic for war. He got the head injury. He's like, he softened. He got less funny. He became more serious. That happened with me as well. It was less important to be hilarious or popular or any of these other things that motivated me. I think as perverted and neurotic as it is to suggest that like going to war is a rite of passage for men, it was for me a kind of movement into my second adulthood, where I went from not really giving too many shits to suddenly feeling like a lot of pressure to start my life and become the artist that I had the potential to become. And I see Apollinaire move from innocence into jadedness, and that looks very familiar without the head injury. And I think most soldiers look back on their naivety of their initial enthusiasm. They'll eventually reach a point where they'll look back on that with some shame. And the way the war machine works is to keep people kind of unaware of the propaganda, unaware of the dehumanization, unaware that what they're doing is killing because they're calling it something else. And then they go home and then they figure it out then. And that's the PTSD, that's the relearning your life. It started as a question about the aesthetics of violence. I think we have to live in the tension between that. And I try to evoke it in the piece as well by getting us to imagine next second all the pieces starting to move again at full velocity, trying to return this to its state of hideous violence. The destructive things are beautiful. Watching a person die in an explosion looks like some kind of beautiful flower. And if you have a deep aesthetic sense, like an artist, then you're going to feel that. And like what Vasyl said earlier about, you know, sometimes the poets, sometimes the artists have to go to war or they fight in their own way. I believe that because when we saw in later images in your presentation about the kind of roboticization of war in World War I, we created factories of killing, and the robot soldiers became fully shut down emotionally. What the hell is the artist? What the hell is the poet except the person who has tried to open themselves up into the rich aesthetic experience and the experience of the shared humanity? So I think, like, naturally, the poet is the anti-soldier.